What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering. I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful day. Jerry Seinfeld is out on his kind of press tour promoting his Pop-Tarts movie or whatever. I think it's about Pop-Tarts. I haven't really had much interest in seeing it. I don't know if it's good or it's bad. I know critics are whining about it, so maybe that means it's good. It's just not high on my list right now of things to watch. But he took he went for Howard Stern's most vulnerable, his most sensitive. He brought up Howard Stern's most sensitive point with a expert jab. Of course, after realizing how much he hurt his feelings, he's now been backpedaling. But he said what he said, he meant what he said, and what he said is true. You see all these headlines. Jerry Seinfeld says he thinks Howard Stern has been outflanked by other comedy podcasters before issuing a groveling apology. No, what you said was 100% true. Jerry Seinfeld continues to make the rounds to promote his new movie Unfrosted when he took a not-so-subtle shot at Howard Stern. The 70-year-old comedian appeared on Dana Carvey and David Spade's Fly on the Wall podcast, where he wondered if Stern essentially invented podcasting. No, he didn't. He was a shock jock. There were shock jocks before Stern. I mean, he certainly popularized it. He was probably the most famous ever. But he definitely wasn't the only shock jock. I mean, how about Weenie in the Butt? Remember, they're popular. Anyway, Howard Stern invented this, right? But we're better than him now. Howard is interesting. Howard is a great interviewer. But comedy chops, I mean, can we speak candidly? Seinfeld said. As Spade said, sure. But Carvey said, no. Carvey added, well, he got Robin, and Robin's a big part of how he's funny, referring to Stern's longtime co-host, Robin Quivers. They're all great, but let's face it, he's been outflanked by some and yourselves. I mean, absolutely. This show, comedy podcast, this is one of the best on air, he said. Reps for Seinfeld issued a statement to dailymail.com where he admitted, I really feel bad for what I said about my friend Howard Stern in a conversation with David Spade and Dana Carvey, talking about the glut of comedy podcasts. No, he absolutely meant it. The fact of the matter is that Howard Stern, I mean, I'm not going to pretend like the guy wasn't ever at the top of his game, because he was. There was probably like a 10-year run where there was nobody more popular. He himself, negotiated that deal with SiriusXM, which became, the absolute most massive deal that anyone had signed at that time. He went on to say, I meant to say that he must feel surrounded, but I said outflanked, which sounds terrible and insulting. No, he meant that. Nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to listen to woke Howard Stern prattle on about how everyone should get the jab and that you shouldn't have basic human rights if you don't. All right. I mean, this is a guy that has come out to say, Howard Stern says he likes being called woke. It's a compliment. I'm not for stupidity. He says Howard Stern is embracing being called woke, says he wants to be awake. I kind of take that as a compliment that I'm woke. Sirius XM host told listeners on his show Monday in response to YouTube personalities applying the term to him. To me, the opposite of woke is being asleep. Oh, yeah, real clever. Stern said, and if woke means I can't get behind Trump, which is what I think it means, it doesn't mean that, or that I support people who want to be trans, or I'm for the jab, dude, call me woke as you want. Stern explained, I'm not for stupidity, he continued, saying he recently received his 75th jab. By the way, he still got the coof. Just saying. He made a big deal. Effing science. This effing country is so great. He said, I'm woke, MFer, and I love it. I want to read legitimate news sources. Here's how woke I am. I believe, in the presidential election, I'm woke, blah, 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 blah. So he ends up going on a complete meltdown. And if you actually listen to the clip, Jerry Seinfeld was not kidding. Listen to this.
But
Good enough.
Yeah.
Howard Stern invented this, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But we're better than him now.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
Howard is.
I mean, what's there to miss about that? First of all, I'm not a podcast guy. I suppose I actually view my show on YouTube and all my platforms. I know that a lot of you out there are just passively listening. I certainly would think the live stream, there's a lot of people that are just listening. I guess my daily live stream at 5:30 Eastern, which will be linked in the pinned comment below. Please follow and tune in tonight. Joined by Melanie Mack. It's always a good time when Mac and Cheese are on the air. But I do think, there are people that just listen to videos, and then there are podcasts. I think, actually, in my opinion, the podcast boom is over. They were never more popular than they were during lockdowns, and they will never be that popular again. I think you see most of them, whether it's like Bert Kreischer, their Two Bears podcast is crumbling. It's basically turned into a 2-hour ad for vodka these days. Nobody, what about all those shows with like Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub and, Dalia, all these guys? Nobody even talks about them or listens to them anymore. Theo Vaughn does all right, and Bad Friends does all right. There's a couple. But there was a point where these guys were all on like 7 or 8 podcasts, and they were all massive. Now there's just 1 or 2 kind of hanging around. I suppose you could say maybe Kill Tony's a podcast in a way. Even that is kind of, some people think, is kind of going downhill a little bit. So I don't think that, Howard Stern did not invent podcasts. He did not invent long form radio. He didn't invent bringing guests on the radio. He absolutely popularized it. He took it to a level that no one before him had, and you've got to give him respect for that.
Interesting. Howard is a great interviewer, but comedy chops. Can we speak candidly?
Sure.
No. Well, he got Robin.
Well, he gets serious,
and Robin is a big part of how.
Yeah, they're all
funny.
great, but let's face it.
Let's be honest.
He's been outflanked by some and yourselves, I would say, is absolutely. This show is comedy podcast. This is the best one on the air.
Now, he may just be, being kind to his buddies. I don't know how tight he is with David Spade. I suspect he's probably tighter with Dana Carvey. But no. Jerry Seinfeld absolutely, positively meant what he said. He meant the word outflanked. He meant every word of it. And this is the silver bullet for Howard Stern. It is the number one thing that bothers him the most, is that while he was pursuing being a Hollywood loser, the world passed him by and no one even thinks about his show anymore. I don't know what his listenership is, but I got to think it's declining every year, because anybody that is that active about, wanting to go out of their way to tell people that they think half the country is garbage or all this kind of stuff, like, I don't think that's a good business model. Now, do I think that there are like hardcore leftists that, watch my show? Probably not. There may be a couple, but I know there are lots of liberals that do. And I want them here. I want liberals to be here. I want people to tune in, and we'll probably agree on more things than we disagree. The podcast era, as a larger conversation, is an interesting one. I'd love to have a long-form conversation with some of these podcast guys and hear what they think, because if you've been watching, like, all these companies are getting sued and going under that owe all these podcasters hundreds of thousands of dollars for minimum guarantee contracts. The podcast arena is pretty dead. Joe Rogan's probably more popular than ever, but it should be mentioned that Joe Rogan, in his latest contract, went out of his way to make sure that he could then put his show back on YouTube and X and all these other platforms. I'm going to guess that he flatlined. He's obviously still extremely popular on Spotify, but he probably stopped growing because, I don't know. I know people love podcasts, so I don't want to like dig on them. I'll watch clips, things of that nature. But Jerry absolutely meant what he said. Howard Stern was never really funny. He had the whack pack, and he had people around him that were funny. Watching the train wreck that was Artie Lang was always funny, that kind of stuff. But Howard was never funny. Howard's not a funny guy. and I don't know why he would be offended by that, but what he is offended by is the fact that Jerry Seinfeld basically said the world passed him by. TMZ wrote, it's a little bit of a spicy hot take from Jerry. He said quite a few of those lately, including slamming the extreme left for ending sitcoms and funny television. Yeah, I mean, they have, though. Howard Stern absolutely was outflanked by better podcasters who adapted with the market. That doesn't take away from the pioneering that he did. It sucks the way he turned out, but ultimately it doesn't really erase the things that he did. So if he's coming out saying, of course, none of this, he apologizes, but he meant it. He absolutely, positively meant it. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.